Most people think of UNESCO World Heritage Sites and picture ancient ruins in Europe or rainforests in South America. What a lot of people don't realize is that the United States has 26 of them, and several are so extraordinary that they would stop anyone in their tracks. So today, we're counting down 17 UNESCO heritage sites that will blow your mind. Wonders of America. Number 17. Poverty Point, Louisiana. Poverty Point does not get nearly the attention it deserves. Located in northeastern Louisiana near the Mississippi River, it represents one of the most remarkable construction projects in all of prehistoric North America. Built by a society that, as far as archaeologists can tell, had no agriculture. Around 1700 BCE, people at Poverty Point constructed a complex of earthworks, 6 concentric ridges arranged in a half circle, several large mounds, and a central plaza. The largest mound stands about 72 feet tall and stretches more than 700 feet in length. The total construction required moving an estimated 238,000 cubic yards of dirt, all by hand, without draft animals, without wheels, and without a centralized agricultural economy to support the labor force. Who these people were remains genuinely contested. They traded across an enormous network: copper from the Great Lakes, galena from Missouri, chert from Tennessee, and had skilled craftspeople working in stone. But they appear to have been primarily a hunter-gatherer society, which makes the scale of their construction deeply puzzling. Building something this ambitious is not supposed to happen outside of agricultural civilizations. Poverty Point didn't get the memo. UNESCO inscribed it in 2014, easily missed by anyone driving through. That is a mistake worth correcting. Number 16. Cahokia Mounds, Illinois. Just across the Mississippi River from present-day St. Louis lies the largest pre-Columbian city ever built north of Mexico. At its height, around 1100 CE, Cahokia had a population estimated between 10,000 and 20,000 people, larger than London at the time. The Mississippian culture that built Cahokia constructed over 100 earthen mounds across a 5-square-mile area. The largest, Monk's Mound, has a base covering 14 acres, larger than the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza. It rises 100 feet and was built in stages over several centuries. Standing on top gives a very specific sense of how comprehensively most American history education has failed to account for what was happening on this continent before European arrival. Cahokia was abandoned around 1350 CE. Drought, environmental degradation, political collapse, or some combination. By the time French explorers arrived in the late 17th century, the city had been empty for 300 years. UNESCO inscribed it in 1982. It sits in a suburb called Collinsville, surrounded by ordinary American development. There is a strip mall visible from the mounds. The juxtaposition is difficult to process, and also, somehow, very American. Number 15. La Fortaleza and San Juan National Historic Site, Puerto Rico. San Juan was founded by Spanish colonizers in the early 16th century and became one of the most heavily fortified cities in the Western Hemisphere. The Spanish spent more than 2 centuries building and refining its defensive system. Walls up to 20 feet thick, massive forts at critical harbor approaches, a complete enclosure built to withstand cannon fire, hurricanes, and repeated assault. Castillo San Felipe del Morro, El Morro, sits at the northwest tip of the island above the entrance to San Juan Bay. Construction began in 1539 and continued through the 17th century, creating a fortress with walls up to 140 feet above sea level and batteries at multiple elevations covering every approach from the sea. El Morro repelled Sir Francis Drake's attack in 1595 and an assault by the Earl of Cumberland in 1598 that briefly succeeded but could not be sustained. Castillo San Cristobal, on the eastern edge of the Old City, is larger than El Morro and the biggest Spanish fortification built in the Americas. UNESCO inscribed the site in 1983. Old San Juan is still a living city. People live in the historic core. Restaurants and shops occupy colonial buildings, and the forts are among the most visited sites in the Caribbean. The connecting walls, walkable in their entirety, offer Atlantic views unchanged since the 16th century. Number 14, Independence Hall, Pennsylvania. There is an argument to be made that this one building changed the history of the world more than almost any other structure you could name. Independence Hall in Philadelphia is where the Declaration of Independence was adopted on July 4th, 1776, and where the United States Constitution was drafted and signed in 1787, both produced in the same room, 11 years apart, both shaping the political trajectory of the modern world. The building was constructed between 1732 and 1756 as the Pennsylvania State House. It is Georgian in style, brick, symmetrical, with a characteristic tower and steeple, and genuinely beautiful in the understated way of 18th century civic architecture. The assembly room, where both documents were debated and signed, is preserved with period furnishings, and standing in it produces a very specific quality of attention. UNESCO inscribed Independence Hall in 1979 among the very first American sites on the World Heritage List. The surrounding National Historical Park puts a significant chunk of Revolutionary-era history within walking distance. It is, in a word, a lot. Number 13, Redwood National and State Parks, California. The coastal redwoods of Northern California are the tallest trees on Earth, and no description of their scale fully prepares a person for standing among them. The tallest known living redwood, Hyperion, stands 380 feet, taller than the Statue of Liberty from base to torch. Its exact location is not publicly disclosed to prevent root compaction from concentrated foot traffic. The parks protect about 139,000 acres of old-growth and recovering forest along the Northern California coast, with trees ranging from 500 to over 2,000 years old. Walking through old-growth redwood forest is a disorienting experience. The canopy closes out direct sunlight, trunks reach 12 to 15 feet in diameter, and the scale makes visitors feel physically small in a way that is actually pleasant. Almost half of all remaining old-growth coastal redwood forest is protected here. Before commercial logging, redwoods covered approximately 2 million acres along the California coast. By the time the parks were established in the 1960s and 1970s, roughly 90% had been lost. UNESCO inscribed the parks in 1980. Roosevelt elk graze in the meadows. The Pacific Ocean is visible from the coastal sections. It is one of the genuine wonders of the continent. Number 12, Chaco Culture, New Mexico. Between approximately 850 and 1150 CE, the ancestral Puebloan people of northwestern New Mexico built something in Chaco Canyon that has never been fully explained. The great houses, massive multi-story stone structures with hundreds of rooms, were constructed with a precision and consistency that required planning on a scale the archaeological record does not easily account for. Pueblo Bonito, the largest, contains approximately 650 rooms and rose to 4 or 5 stories. Its walls used a core and veneer technique, rubble core faced on both sides with carefully shaped stone, requiring skilled labor and organizational coordination. Doorways, windows, and entire buildings align with the sun at solstices and equinoxes, and with the 18.6-year lunar standstill cycle. Chaco was not simply a settlement, it was a regional center, the hub of a network connected by roads up to 30 feet wide stretching hundreds of miles across the desert. engineered straight regardless of terrain. Why it was abandoned by the mid-12th century remains debated. Its descendants are the modern Pueblo peoples of New Mexico and Arizona, who consider it a sacred ancestral site. UNESCO inscribed it in 1987. Getting there requires a long drive on unpaved roads, which keeps the crowds manageable and the silence intact. Number 11, Mesa Verde National Park, Colorado. Mesa Verde is where one of the most dramatic architectural traditions in North American prehistory reaches its climactic expression. The ancestral Puebloan people who built the cliff dwellings were constructing multi-room apartment complexes into canyon walls, sheltered under massive sandstone overhangs, accessible by hand and toe-hold trails, arranged across multiple stories with kivas, plazas, and storage rooms serving communities that numbered in the hundreds. Cliff Palace, the most famous site, contains 150 rooms and 23 kivas, and was home to perhaps 100 to 150 people at its height. It was occupied from approximately 1190 to 1300 CE before being abandoned when the entire regional population moved south to the Rio Grande Valley. The reasons include a sustained drought ending around 1300, but also social and political factors archaeologists are still working out. The park protects over 4,700 archaeological sites across its 52,000 acres in southwestern Colorado, documenting the long arc of ancestral Puebloan occupation. UNESCO inscribed Mesa Verde in 1978, making it one of the first 2 American sites on the World Heritage List. Cliff Palace and the major cliff dwellings are accessible only with a ranger-guided tour, which is worth every minute. Number 10. Statue of Liberty, New York. The Statue of Liberty arrived in New York Harbor in 214 crates in 1885, was assembled on Bedloe's Island, now Liberty Island, and dedicated on October 28, 1886. It was a gift from France, the work of sculptor Frédéric-Auguste Bartholdi and engineer Gustave Eiffel, who designed the interior iron framework 3 years before he built the Eiffel Tower. The statue stands 305 feet tall and is made of copper sheets hammered to an average thickness of 2.4 millimeters, about 2 pennies, over a structural iron skeleton. The copper has oxidized into the familiar blue-green patina. When new, it was a shiny reddish-brown. For millions of immigrants arriving by ship in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it was the first American landmark they saw from the water. Its symbolic weight accumulated over decades until it became a globally recognizable shorthand for liberty and arrival. UNESCO inscribed it in 1984. Approaching across the harbor by ferry is the way to understand why it has the effect that it does. Number 9. Everglades National Park, Florida. The Everglades is unlike any other ecosystem in North America. It is not a swamp. That's the common mischaracterization. It is a slow-moving river, a sheet of water about 60 miles wide and only a few inches deep, flowing almost imperceptibly from Lake Okeechobee southward to Florida Bay. The Seminole people called it Papahānaumokuākea, the River of Grass. The park protects about 1.5 million acres at the southern tip of Florida, supporting an extraordinary concentration of biodiversity. American alligators and crocodiles, one of the only places both coexist. The Florida panther, manatees, sea turtles, and more wading bird species than anywhere in North America. The roseate spoonbill, a bird so pink it looks implausible, feeds alongside herons, egrets, and hingas and wood storks. It is also currently on UNESCO's list of World Heritage in danger. Over a century of drainage projects, agricultural runoff, water diversion, and invasive species, most notoriously the Burmese python, have profoundly damaged the ecosystem. Restoring something approaching the original hydrology is the work of a decades-long federal effort still underway. UNESCO inscribed it in 1979. The endangered designation reflects how much remains at stake and how much has already been lost. Number 8. Olympic National Park, Washington. Olympic National Park occupies the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State, a thumb of land jutting into the Pacific between the Strait of Juan de Fuca and Puget Sound. Within its approximately 922,000 acres, 3 entirely different ecosystems exist in close proximity: the Pacific coastline, the alpine zones of the Olympic Mountains, and the temperate rainforests of the western river valleys. The Hoh rainforest receives between 140 and 170 inches of precipitation per year. Its trees, Sitka spruce, western red cedar, Douglas fir, big leaf maple, are draped in club moss and ferns, and the forest floor absorbs sound in a way that makes the interior feel unnaturally quiet. Ancient trees reach diameters of 12 to 15 feet. The valley's elk have evolved into a distinct subspecies, the Roosevelt elk, named for President Theodore Roosevelt, who protected the area in 1909. The coastline section, about 40 miles from the rainforest, is wild ocean beach backed by sea stacks and tide pools. The alpine section, centered on Hurricane Ridge, offers views across the full Olympic range. UNESCO inscribed Olympic in 1981. Number 7. Grand Canyon National Park, Arizona. There is almost nothing useful to say about the Grand Canyon that adequately conveys what it is. At 277 miles long, up to 18 miles wide, and over a mile deep, it is a scale of landscape that defeats language before language can get started. The canyon walls expose approximately 2 billion years of geological history, nearly half of the Earth's existence. Invisible layers of rock that change color through the day as the light shifts. What makes the Grand Canyon specifically extraordinary is not just its size, but its combination of scale and detail. From the rim, the vast distance makes everything look still and abstract. Descend into it, by trail, by mule, by raft on the Colorado River at the bottom, and it becomes a different world, with its own climate, its own vegetation zones, and a quality of silence at the bottom that the roar of the river occasionally punctuates but never fully eliminates. John Wesley Powell, the one-armed Civil War veteran who led the first documented scientific expedition through the canyon by boat in 1869, described looking up at the canyon walls and feeling that he was reading the history of the Earth in stone. The experience of standing at the rim for the first time produces something similar in most people, a reorientation of scale that doesn't fully go away when you leave. UNESCO inscribed the Grand Canyon in 1979. Over 5 million people visit each year, which means it is simultaneously one of the most visited and most overwhelming places in America. Number 6. Yosemite National Park, California. Yosemite Valley is a glacially carved granite canyon in the Sierra Nevada, 7 miles long, a mile wide, about half a mile deep. And it contains, within that compact space, an extraordinary concentration of natural features. El Capitan, the largest exposed granite monolith in the world, rises 3,000 feet from the valley floor. Half Dome stands nearly 5,000 feet above the valley. Yosemite Falls drops nearly 2,500 feet in 3 tiers. Bridal Veil Fall is visible from the first overlook most visitors encounter. John Muir, who spent more time in Yosemite than almost anyone and wrote about it more beautifully than almost anyone else, called it the grandest of all special temples of nature. Standing in the valley with El Capitan and Half Dome visible simultaneously, waterfalls dropping off the canyon walls, and the Merced River running through the flat floor below, it is difficult to argue with him. The park covers over 750,000 acres beyond the famous valley, including the Tuolumne Meadows high country, several groves of giant sequoias, the world's largest trees by volume, and a backcountry that extends into some of the most remote terrain in the Sierra Nevada. UNESCO inscribed Yosemite in 1984. Number 5. Papahānaumokuākea Marine National Monument, Hawaii. Papahānaumokuākea is the largest protected marine area in the United States. A chain of islands, atolls, reefs, and open ocean stretching nearly 1,400 miles northwest of the main Hawaiian Islands. It covers approximately 582,578 square miles, making it larger than all of America's national parks combined. The monument's northwestern Hawaiian Islands are home to 14 million seabirds of 22 species, more than 7,000 marine species, and critical habitat for the endangered Hawaiian monk seal and Hawaiian green sea turtle. The black-footed albatross and Laysan albatross nest here in enormous colonies. Midway Atoll alone supports the world's largest colony of Laysan albatrosses. Midway is also where the Battle of Midway was fought in June 1942, the naval engagement considered the turning point of the Pacific War, in which American forces sank 4 Japanese aircraft carriers. The wrecks of aircraft and remnants of wartime infrastructure now coexist with nesting seabird colonies on the same islands. The site carries deep cultural significance for native Hawaiian people, who regard the northwestern chain as the place where life originates and returns after death. UNESCO inscribed it in 2010 as a mixed cultural and natural site, the only one of its kind in the United States. Number 4. Waterton-Glacier International Peace Park, Montana/Canada. In 1932, Waterton Lakes National Park in Alberta and Glacier National Park in Montana were combined to form the world's first international peace park, celebrating both the long, peaceful border between the United States and Canada and the remarkable landscape the two nations share. The combined park covers over 1 million acres of dramatic Rocky Mountain scenery. Glacier once contained approximately 150 glaciers when it was established in 1910. Fewer than 30 remain today, with researchers projecting most may disappear within coming decades. The Going to the Sun Road, completed in 1932 and running 53 miles over Logan Pass at 6,646 feet, is one of the great engineering achievements of the national park system. Built largely by hand over a decade, with workers drilling and blasting across near vertical cliff faces. UNESCO inscribed Waterton Glacier in 1995. Number 3. Yellowstone National Park, Wyoming/Montana/Idaho. Yellowstone was the world's first national park, signed into law by President Ulysses S. Grant on March 1, 1872. Creating the concept of public land protected in perpetuity for all people, an idea subsequently adopted by nations across the world. The United States invented the national park, and Yellowstone is where it started. The park sits atop one of the largest supervolcano systems on Earth. The Yellowstone caldera, roughly 45 miles wide and 30 miles long, is the collapsed crater of an eruption approximately 640,000 years ago. The volcanic heat beneath drives more than 10,000 geothermal features, including roughly half of all the geysers in the world. Old Faithful erupts every 60 to 90 minutes. Grand Prismatic Spring, at 370 feet wide and 121 feet deep, produces the vivid orange, red, and yellow rings of thermophilic bacteria surrounding its deep blue center. The greater Yellowstone ecosystem, the park and surrounding public lands, is the largest intact temperate ecosystem in the Northern Hemisphere, supporting wolves, grizzly bears, bison, elk, pronghorn, and every other large mammal species present at the time of European contact. The reintroduction of wolves from Canada in 1995 and 1996 remains one of the most consequential ecological restoration projects in American history. UNESCO inscribed Yellowstone in 1978, Number 2, Kluane/Wrangell-St. Elias/Glacier Bay/Tachincini-Alsek, Alaska/Canada. This transboundary site, shared between the United States and Canada, is the largest protected area in the world. Approximately 37 million acres of wilderness across southeastern Alaska, British Columbia, and the Yukon, designated in stages between 1979 and 1994. Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, the American portion, is the largest national park in the United States at over 13.2 million acres, larger than California. 9 of the 16 highest peaks in the country rise within its boundaries, including Mount St. Elias at 18,008 feet, the Bagley Ice Field, the largest non-polar ice field in the world, feeds glaciers that calve directly into the ocean. Glacier Bay tells a different story. In 1750, it was completely filled with glacial ice. By 1879, when John Muir visited, the ice had retreated 16 miles. Today, it has retreated 65 miles from its 1750 position, one of the most dramatic documented glacial retreats anywhere on Earth. The combined site protects grizzly bears, wolves, moose, Dale sheep, mountain goats, and the largest concentration of glaciers in North America. Much of it is accessible only by small aircraft or boat. Most of it has never been walked by a human being, and likely never will be. Number 1, Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, Hawaii. The island of Hawaii is the most volcanically active landmass on Earth, and Hawaii Volcanoes National Park sits at its active center, home to Kilauea, one of the most continuously active volcanoes on the planet, and Mauna Loa, the largest volcano on Earth by volume. What makes it specifically extraordinary is that the process it protects is not finished. The lava keeps flowing, the land keeps growing, the island is actively increasing in size as material from Kilauea adds to the southeastern shoreline. In certain periods, you can watch new land being created in real time. Kilauea has been erupting almost continuously since 1983. The 2018 eruption destroyed over 700 homes in the Leilani Estates subdivision and added approximately 875 acres of new land to the island. The park also preserves a volcanic landscape at every stage of ecological succession, from bare lava fields decades old to dense rainforest grown back over flows from centuries past to ancient lava tubes large enough to walk through. The Thurston Lava Tube, also called Nahuku, is a 600-foot tunnel formed when the outer shell of a lava flow hardened while the liquid interior drained away. UNESCO inscribed the park in 1987. Former President Barack Obama, who grew up in Hawaii, once described the islands as a place that teaches people to be humble before forces far larger than themselves, a sentiment that anyone standing at the edge of an active lava field would recognize immediately. The park is open. The volcano is active. The land is still being made. That is the most remarkable thing about it. The United States has 26 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in total, and even the ones that didn't make this list are worth visiting. What this list represents is the sheer range of what the country contains. From 2-billion-year-old canyon walls to lava actively flowing into the ocean. From the building where American democracy was written to the largest protected marine area in the world. The easiest thing to say about these places is that they are big and beautiful, and they are. But the more interesting thing is that each of them exists because someone, a scientist, a park advocate, an indigenous community, a president, an international committee, decided that some things are worth protecting for the species that depend on them and for people who haven't been born yet. That idea, which the United States proposed to the world in 1972 and was the first nation to ratify, has now spread to 196 countries. It started with Yellowstone in 1872, and it has never stopped expanding since. Go visit something. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on more content like this.